Greetings, thank you very much for tuning into this channel that covers T levels relating to science and health. My name is Paul Tavares and I'm a lecturer in biochemistry. I teach T levels in science and health related science subjects. And it is my intent to put out information relating to the A1 and B1 and B2 content of the T-level science and health related science syllabus. So tune in, let me know if you'd like a specific area covered. I've had a lot of industrial experience too, and so I would like to add my own spin on the A content of the syllabus and how you can start to understand the applications in the real world. It is my aim to make this subject enjoyable for everyone who studies it, because a life without passion is not a full-fledged life. I hope you enjoy the course. Leave comments, ask questions, send this to anyone you know who might benefit, and I hope that you can engage with me and ask whatever is playing on your mind relating to the subject content. It is my opinion that you should be able to relate everything you have studied. You should be able to relate it to whichever field you wish to go into and develop an understanding for how your studies are going to help you in the real world. One of the most common statements I get from students on many different courses is, we're not going to be able to use this in the real world. In the past, perhaps what was on the syllabus was very generic, but with time, information is being streamlined in such a way that it relates to what is going on in industry and in the real world. So throughout the course, try and make relationships and connections with what is going on in industry, especially if you've had work experience, or perhaps look at job descriptions for a particular field of work you wish to go into and see how the information tallies with that job description. Always look at the bigger picture. In the human world, we see relationships of all kinds. We are beings that form relationships with others, and some are very strong relationships. Animals relate to each other. There are relationships in nature, and we study them at a lower level when we look at science in school. We study food chains, food webs, and food pyramids. And we also study cycles of all kinds, carbon cycles, water cycles, many different cycles. In fact, if you look around you, you will see relationships of all kinds. Chefs, waiters, and the people who come into the restaurant themselves relate to each other in a complex and intricate way. COVID-19 has taught us the power of being connected, the power of being disconnected, and the damaging effects that can have on our well-being. we develop either healthy relationships with our food, our drinks, and everything we put into our bodies. Or perhaps we have an unhealthy relationship with food. Perhaps what we consume is damaging our bodies. The very thoughts we place in our mind can create unhealthy thought cycles and unhealthy relationships with our minds. The brain is a complex area of study, very interesting, and many scientists are curious of what makes people tick. I am interested in the human state and how to enhance it to the highest level. And that is why I study science. That is why I also explore other dimensions of enhancement too. Knowledge is only useful if you can apply it and if it is relevant to your field of work. Try and apply what you have studied to questions. Answer exam papers and recall what you have studied on a regular basis. Being in the field of science and medical research is amazing because we are at a point where we are about to discover the very secrets of life itself. So what are cells? Cells contain DNA. Cells contain many things. Cells are the basic units of life. DNA is the genetic code that allows us to create more cells of different types and is found within the nucleus of a cell. So here is a cell. It's a typical cell with organelles inside. Organelles are a little bit like organs within a human being, an animal, or a plant. The three principles of cell theory. A living thing is composed of one or more cells, i.e., it is unicellular or multicellular. A unicellular organism may be something that we are unfamiliar with at this point in time, but unicellular or organisms that have one cell include organisms like amoeba and bacteria. Multicellular organisms include animals and higher plants. Cells are basic structural and functional units of living organisms. So they are a single unit that can carry out the basic processes that organism does. The basic unit of life. And all cells arise from one that existed before, a pre-existing cell. They are created by the process of mitosis, but bear in mind that they can also be created by meiosis, or the fusion of sex cells, sperm and egg cells, or gametes. They are a little bit like blocks of Lego. the blocks being the cells, and the final construct being the multicellular organism itself. And if we're talking about unicells, then of course the blocks would exist alone. So use these examples to create memory and good recall. The funnier the example, the better. And just like atoms are constructed in different ways, so too are cells. They are constructed in different ways and form different types of cell. Atoms come together to form molecules. And so there are different types of cells. Nerve cells transmit information. Red blood cells are void of a nucleus and therefore able to carry a lot more oxygen than if they had one. Fat cells have the ability to swell up and store lipid. Here is a typical cell, and you would do well labeling up a cell and starting to understand how the different components form relationships with each other. Every component within a cell relates to another, and intricate, powerful relationships are formed between organelles within a cell. Cells come in a range of shapes and sizes. This is a bacterial cell. Bacterial cells are rather different because they don't have a nucleus. Instead, they have a circular piece of DNA called a nucleoid. And the nucleoid is a store of genetic information. They also have additional pieces of DNA called plasmids, which confer disease resistance and are the subject of study for much genetic engineering research. Sperm cells are specialized for mobility, and egg cells for storage. You need to know how to label a basic cross-section of a cell. You need to know the function of a cell membrane, the vacuole, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, cytoplasm, lysosomes, ribosomes, centromeres, smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and mitochondria. Anyone going into the field of biology needs to understand the basic unit of life. Whether you are going into midwifery, nursing, becoming a doctor, becoming a lab scientist, or medical sales, ultimately what we want to do is enhance life in some way. So learn the basic structural unit of a cell. Understand what each component does and how they relate to one another. Learn about things that affect ourselves. So bacteria, fungi, viruses. Because the medical world and scientific world are constantly challenged by these tiny organisms that we cannot see, yet they have a huge impact on our life. Learn about cell specialization and why certain cells are tasked with doing certain things and taking on certain roles within the body. A zygote is formed from the fusion of two gametes, a sperm cell and an egg cell, and will eventually divide and grow into a new human being. Note that viruses like HIV are not cells. In fact, their role is to hijack the machinery of cells and make more of themselves. From the moment we are born to the moment we pass, we have relationships going on in and around us. We have microscopic relationships happening in our cells. Our bodies are constantly invaded by pathogens or disease-causing microorganisms that have a very negative relationship with us and our immune cells. And if you think wider about our impact on the planet itself and how negative that is, we are a little bit like those pathogens. We're damaging the world that we're in, and we have a very negative relationship with the planet itself. So it's up to you to think and relate what information you have acquired from this small mini lecture on cells, relationships, T-level science, stroke medical science, health science, and just develop an understanding for how you are going to approach this course and get the best from it. Always think back to how science has evolved and how it continues to evolve. Organisms of all types contain basic units called cells, basic units that create more complex and intricate cellular structures, some of which were much more complex than we've ever seen. And we are at a point in time where we are creating organisms from structures that are void of cells completely. So how you grow and develop through this course and through life itself is completely up to you, and what relationship you have with others, the tools, the processes around you, and what relationship you have with yourself.